Today we're bringing you something special, a bonus episode that revisits one of our most gripping cases, the inside job. But this time we're hearing it straight from the fire investigator who helped crack it wide open. Retired fire investigator Bill Lackey takes us inside the investigation of a serial arsonist and burglar who targeted not just homes and businesses, but fire stations and firefighters themselves. With multiple fires, stolen equipment, and a trail of destruction stretching across Southern California, this case required sharp instincts, cutting-edge forensics, and relentless teamwork across agencies to bring the suspect to justice. Find out how Lackey and his team pieced together the evidence to close the case. Let's dive in. This is Hot Pursuit.
Stories from the fire investigation's front line.
This was a type of unpredictable weather event the Orange County Fire Authority had trained for.
Firefighters responded to the 2200 block of South Susan Street with a report of a commercial structure fire.
Fire investigators are still working on their full report about the cause of the fire.
To find out why those fires started and how to prevent them, investigators need to pick through the debris and answer important questions like how did the fire start and where?
The suspect was arrested and charged with 4 counts of arson as well as reckless endangerment.
Welcome to Hot Pursuit, the podcast where we dive into the mysteries and investigations of fire-related true crime cases of the Orange County Fire Authority Investigations Division. I'm Sophia Champeau.
And I am OCFA Fire Captain and Fire Investigator Scott Coleman. And together, we'll take you behind the scenes of some of Orange County's most fascinating and often chilling fire investigations. From arson to accidental fires, we'll explore the evidence, the suspects, and the untold stories that emerge from the ashes.
Every episode will bring you a new case, breaking down the events that led to the fire, and talk to the experts, including fire investigators, law enforcement, and forensic specialists, to give you an inside look at how these cases are solved. Just like you, I'll be hearing these stories for the first time. So sit back, relax, and join us as we uncover the hidden truths behind some of Orange County's most intriguing fire investigations.
This is Hot Pursuit.
Welcome back, Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Very good.
Good. I hear we have a special guest today.
It's special for many reasons, but it's special because this is a real big case that didn't just only affect Orange County. It had multiple jurisdictions involved. And I got him to come back out of retirement to tell the story.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shall we introduce our special guest?
Yes.
Well, welcome, retired investigator Bill Lackey.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
I'm really happy to be here.
So just a real quick thing about Bill. Well, Bill and I is, we both come from other agencies, and our agencies had been absorbed into OCFA to the benefit of our constituents. And we were neighboring agencies, and he was in investigations even before OCFA, and so was I. And so we'd worked together in the capacity of investigators even before coming here. So it was just really serendipitous when we transferred over to OCFA. Bill was already in the investigations unit. Then I came in. It was kind of a like, "What's up, brother?
Cool.
Good to see you."
Yeah, now we're on the same team.
Yeah, it was really cool. And he was always a really dedicated investigator. Like I would call him, like, "Hey, what are you working on?" He's kind of the one that you like. Once he gets the bone, he's not going to let go.
I love that.
And so I got to observe it firsthand in here. So I'm really excited to do this interview. I'm glad he was willing to come back.
I'm excited to hear the story. I can't wait.
Yep.
Should we jump in?
Go ahead, Bill, if you want to start off and tell
Take it away.
Yeah, tell us your involvement in this wonderful case.
Yeah, so I came to the Orange County Fire Authority in 2012. And like I said, we were with another agency. And I had been with that other agency for about 8 years in investigations. When we transitioned over to Orange County, the investigations chief here, John Jones, at the time, you remember John Jones?
Yep.
Came over and said, "Hey, you know what? You have such a huge city. We're taking over here, and it's going to be really helpful for us if we have somebody that can help transition to the investigations part of it. Would you be willing to come on for at least 2 years and help us with that transition?" So like I said, I'd been doing it for about 8 years already. I was, the whole thing about coming into a new agency and trying to learn new stuff and everything was, pretty daunting. But I figured, what, they need the help, so yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. And actually, it was really a blessing for me because it gave me the opportunity to, instead of being isolated into a fire station and just running calls, within such a large jurisdiction, I ended up going out to a ton of fires.
Yeah.
And meeting a lot more people, and I was able to actually assimilate into Orange County Fire Authority a lot quicker by being able to do that. So,
can I interrupt you 1 second,
absolutely.
Bill? That's how they get us in here. So when I came over, I'd been on the floor for a month, and they're like, "Hey, just come in for 2 years." Well, 5 years later, I'm still here. Same with him. So they
Fall
get
in
you
love
in.
with
Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Just come do 2 years. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it's time to retire.
cool.
They get that hook.
Yeah.
That is cool that you got to go right into investigations instead of because usually, like when you guys transition over, typically do you go, like you said, like on the floor for a certain amount of time and then kind of have the opportunity? Is it considered a promotion, or is it just a special assignment when you go into investigations, or how does that typically work?
Well, now there is a bonus attached to this being assigned to this section now, but when I initially came over and when Bill was over, there wasn't an additional bonus to this.
Oh, okay.
Right? You didn't have a bonus at the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was captains at the time as well?
Well, currently it's captains. At one time it wasn't. Was it still captains only when you were there?
It was, I believe it was just captains.
Okay.
It was just captains.
I think the last non-captain was engineer Shane Sherwood.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
That throws you back a while. Yeah.
How cool. Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So, I transitioned over to Orange County, and I went to investigator 55. So I was working out of a station, working a shift schedule. Did that for a couple of years. Had some just fantastic partners that really helped me assimilate into the Orange County, way, which was very different from my previous agency. Just a lot more resources. The fact that we had a officer embedded with the unit was fantastic at that time. It was Barry Miller, and just phenomenal to have that resource. And so, because it is a larger agency, a lot busier, a lot more calls, get a lot more repetition. So I was investigator 55 for a couple years, and then the day position opened up, and so decided I'll go ahead and do that.
So just for the listeners, the day spot, if you remember, when he's signed 55, like I'm currently assigned investigator 36, I do the regular work schedule. So 48 hours on, then our regular days off, and 48 hours on. The day, they do all the follow-up. So anything we can't acquire on scene, we're like, hey, would you be able to pull video, Bill? Would you be able to go get this interview we can capture? And to hit on his part earlier, one thing OCFA does dedicate resources to the investigation area of the fire service, which is lacking in up and down the coast and across the United States. But we have such a call load that they've given us the right tools to do it. And for me, I don't know about you, Bill, but when I got here, I'm like, this is how that should all be done. They give us time to actually follow up. They give us resources to do it. And we've been very successful. And I remember you said the same thing. You're like, we have a lot of convictions.
We had a lot more convictions than we ever had at our previous agencies. And I have a pride in work kind of thing. I'm kind of an odd animal where I actually like writing.
You're talking to I love writing.
Yeah,
I
so
feel you.
I'll leave the room.
Yeah. So I enjoy doing reports. I enjoy being detailed on that. I enjoy doing a lot of the follow-up stuff. So that's why I transitioned over to the day position.
Oh, okay.
To just change that, and become that aspect. So I did a lot of the criminal follow-up for the shift investigators that, they'd have a call. If it was suspicious or they needed additional things to be done, then they hand it over to the day investigator and do that follow-up. So that was my position when this particular case came up. And it was basically December of 2016.
Okay.
So I'd been with Orange County Fire Authority for about 4 years. I remember the day, it was December 18th of 2016. Engine 72 in Santa Ana responded out to a vehicle fire. It was early in the morning. And so Investigator Miller, who I know you've talked to before.
Yeah.
You like his dog?
I love freedom. I always go in there and beeline it for freedom. I'll come talk to Scott and Sean too.
Yeah. So
we know where we stand.
yeah. So this was before Sean had freedom. He was a shift investigator. He went out and investigated that fire, and it was a Volkswagen Beetle, basically in a driveway that burned and extended into an occupied apartment.
Oh, okay.
So it was early in the morning. There were people in there. They're sleeping when the fire happened. Everybody got out. Everybody was safe.
Was it one of those where it's like a carport underneath?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a driveway, but the car was parked pretty close, and it was underneath the bedroom windows of where people were sleeping. So I get the call, later on in the morning, and Sean, Investigator Miller, says, "Hey, yeah, I had this fire. It seemed a little bit suspicious. I'm doing some follow-up and everything." I said, "Okay, great." And then I can't remember the timing exactly, but sometime within the near future of that, the word kind of started coming out that when Engine 72 got back to the station, the guys walked into the day room and were smelling some gasoline. And so walking around the station, they noticed that their chow fun box, and you know what a chow fun box is?
Right. It's so this is actually a good opportunity to talk about food and when you guys are on duty and who pays for all of that. Do either of you want to talk about that at all?
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, so yeah, it's funny because whenever we're out, so we shop for food and we're always amongst the public and we love it. And they're always like, "Oh, they paying for your food." But no, that's really a myth. So we do what's called a chow fund. Well, at the time, it was a chow fund. Now everything's through like a Venmo.
Yes.
But
yeah.
there's a chow fund box, and then you put your money in, and then that's for us to buy chow, either dinner or whatever. And so if it's the beginning of your tour, it's usually filled with a lot of money because they have to make it through the rest of the shifts, right? So yeah, and so we all pitch in money at the beginning of the shift. And we're like, "Hey, do you know what you want to get? Da, 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 da." And then we keep it in there. And we'll come back when we go to the grocery store, pick out the money we need and do it. But that's it.
Yeah. And then also for our listeners, 72 is the station in Santa Ana. So it's close to that call that he's talking about.
Correct. Yeah, it's at 4th Street and the 5 freeway, basically. So the guys get back to the station 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning after running this call. Kind of smell this gasoline smell inside. It's a little bit odd. And then they notice that their chow fun box is not where it was supposed to be. They look in it, money's gone. So like, oh God, we got nailed while we were out on this call. That's, kind of weird. So they pass that information along to the investigators. I got that information also. And then another thing that happened that same morning was that just probably 2 miles away, there was another vehicle fire on a residential street. And this was in Engine 70's first in area, so they responded out to it. And Engine 70 is like in northern part of Santa Ana. It's like Grand and 17th area. So they go, they take care of that. While they were at that fire scene, and this was closer to shift trade or shift change, so there were people that were coming in, and one of the firefighters had come into the station and noticed that the engine was out, and which is not unusual, but he heard someone in the station. So when he called out to that person, he knew that someone ran off. So he didn't really think anything of it. It was like he didn't at that time say anything about it. So we started kind of getting this information. We have 2 vehicle fires, one that went into an apartment. Fire station 72 had been burglarized, and then that was kind of it. So because of the odd circumstances, I went ahead and picked up this case to kind of do some follow-up on it. 2 days later, it was December 20th of 2016. So early in the morning, we have 2 separate vehicle fires in residential areas in the city of Irvine. They're within a mile of each other. Station 26 was the first closest engine over there. So because we had this previous incident where someone had gone in and potentially burglarized the station after a fire, Detective Russell immediately called Irvine PD and said, hey, you need to send a unit over to Fire Station 26 just in case.
Great thinking.
Yeah. So they did that. And nothing happened with that. But we did have those 2 arson vehicle fires. So a little while later, and this was within a few days, in Orange County, we have a really great organization. It's the Orange County Arson Task Force. And basically what it is, it's a group of all the investigators from all the agencies, plus police investigators who are kind of assigned to the arson details of their jurisdictions, the DAs, things like that. We would get together once a month, and we would, just kind of network and talk about trainings and things like that. So at this, I think I was, I can't remember if I was running that at that time or if it was someone else, but at one of those meetings, or at that meeting, we were doing a roundtable, and the Anaheim fire investigator, pops up and says, "Hey, just a heads up, we had a fire on December 20th, same day as those 2 Irvine vehicle fires. We had a fire at Ganal Lumber in Anaheim. We believe it's an intentionally set fire, and our fire station 7 was burglarized." So then now we start thinking, okay, something's going on here. There's a lot of similarities between this whole thing in a real short amount of time. So, we start making sure that our reports are together, and we're getting forensic, examinations, ignitable liquid stuff and things like that all together. And in that time span, one of the investigative techniques that we will do is we'll look for surveillance camera footage. So in the area of Station 72, and actually in Station 70 also, we went out and started looking for cameras. And we found some cameras. One of them was probably like 2 doors down from Station 72.
Oh, that's close.
Yeah. And there was actually a couple businesses in that area. So we reviewed that footage, and lo and behold, we see a vehicle that is at that time in the morning kind of going back and forth in the streets and stuff. And then right around just about a couple minutes after the time the reported fire, see this vehicle go and park right across the street from Station 72. Another minute later, you see engine 72 respond out. As soon as that engine takes off, you see an individual get out of that car, run across the street to the fire station. About 20 minutes later, you see that individual come back again, get in the car, and drive off. And the video is good enough. I mean, it's not color video, it's black and white, but it's good enough to be able to distinguish a shape of a vehicle, some distinguishing marks on windows and trim and things like that. So it's, you can kind of get an idea of the type of vehicle. It's like it was like a 4-door sedan. So we get that, collect that as evidence. We also find at the vehicle fire up by Station 70, a homeowner had a surveillance camera out front. Same thing. See a vehicle that was matching the same description of that vehicle. Pull up in front of this truck. You see a person get out. You actually see him light the fire, and then get back in the car and take off. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, engine 70 rolls up and extinguishes the fire. So now we have 5 arson fires within 2 days' time, and 2 station burglaries, and another person in a station at the same time, and then a vehicle seen at the locations of 2 of the fires.
And in both of those videos, was the vehicle and the person consistent?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you tell it was a male or just a person?
We all know, kind of characteristics and stuff like that, how people run and
Yeah.
stuff. And nothing personally, he didn't run like a girl.
No offense taken. I don't run. So
But just from the body mechanics, it was more consistent with a male as opposed to a female.
Right. And, body type,
Yeah.
a thin type of person, fairly tall, maybe, 5'8" to 6 foot, something like
But
that.
beyond that, it's just a male person. That's it.
In
Just
a
a-
four-door sedan.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a four-door sedan that is similar in both videos.
So that's down to about 500,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
did Anaheim have any footage that they shared, or they were just information sharing at that?
They were
at that time?
information sharing at that time. All they had was the station burglary and the arson
Okay.
on the same day as the two Irvine fires. So, okay, so we gather that evidence. We have this case. So I start building a case file, and collecting these videos and everything, and start the initial processes of an investigation. February of 2017, CAL FIRE puts out an informational bulletin stating that they had a fire at a hay and feed store in the Inland Empire, large loss fire. And at this fire, they had encountered an individual who was at the scene and been seen observing the fire. I'll call him CS. Okay. And so they made contact with CS, and he had probation terms. So that means search and seizure. So he,
Can you clarify that a little bit more? Because I know we know what search and seizure is, but with probation terms, what does that mean? So people don't. My mom would not know that.
Okay. So if your mom gets arrested, okay, and she goes before a judge and she gets convicted of a crime, a serious crime, then that judge can impose what's called search and seizure on that person for a set amount of time. And then that means that if they are contacted by a law enforcement individual, they have to disclose that they're on a search and seizure to that person, and that law enforcement individual can go ahead and search their person for anything that might be evidence of a crime.
If I wanted to look into your purse or something, I can't do that unless I have probable cause. If I just make contact with you, you can tell me no. But
Right.
with this, if you're on probation, I can be like,
I have
I'd
no
like to
way
look.
to say no.
You'd be like, all right, you got to give it over. So-
Okay.
Yeah. So CS was on search and seizure. He had to tell the investigators that. So the investigators went ahead and did a search of his vehicle. And they found some items like a lighter, some ignitable liquids. They found some firefighting gear, clothing, things like that. They found some items like a GoPro and some money on his person. And, they were asking him, it's like, what's this stuff? Well, it's mine, and everything like that, or it's my friend's. So during this time, they are, talking to him. They get some information that two of their fire stations had been robbed. The two of the responding units had their stations robbed, while they were at the fire. So they kind of start doing some more investigative work, asking some questions. They find out that this individual, as a juvenile, had been arrested, and that's why he's on probation for setting a fire and robbing a fire station.
Okay.
I did not know that part.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he had this history. He was asked about the items. He said, "Those are mine." They went and spoke to the people at the fire station, and they were actually just like, "Well, I had a GoPro and it's missing." They looked at the GoPro, and it's the footage that this firefighter had. It's his GoPro.
Yeah.
They had money that was missing out of their chow fund. It was exactly the amount of money that he had on him.
It looks like a duck. It walks like a duck.
Yeah, right. So, so he eventually admits to burglarizing the fire stations
Oh, okay.
there to the officers. But he denies the fire. But then they also have video of him right, in the area when the fire starts. So they kind of start putting some stuff together. Well, lo and behold, they end up arresting him, and they charged him with 7 different counts of arson and burglary, felony counts. And so on the arrest, I guess he admits it. He just pleads guilty to these counts.
So, really quick question. So, if he's already a felon, if he's on probation for something like that and he gets arrested, is there any like amplified charges because he's already on probation, or are the charges just the exact same as they would be for like your mom if she started a fire?
My mom again?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
So,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say that typically first-time offenders will get kind of the benefit of the doubt. You know, it's like, okay, you're stupid, and you know, you're not going to get, because there's a charging range on crimes. You know, it's a lesser, a middle, and a higher charging range. So the judge will have a discretion to how much they give them. So, you know, I don't recall what his sentencing was, but he was going to prison for a couple of years based on this. So that happens. He pleads guilty fairly quick. Doesn't go to trial, and then they put out this informational bulletin. Well, lo and behold, we pick this up, right? And so we're looking, and I have the bulletin. You want to see the bulletin?
Yeah, let's see it. That would be cool.
I'll show you the bulletin.
And remind me, you said this was from CAL FIRE, right?
This is from CAL FIRE. Yeah, so they send out this informational bulletin, and then they include pictures of the individual.
At that, a four-door sedan
and a
5'8" male.
yeah, and pictures of a sedan that belongs to him that he was found in. So we look at that, and we do a little comparison of the videos that we saw at Station 72 and Station 70, and it's a similar vehicle. The person seen running across the street is wearing similar clothing, and there's this particular item right here, this marking on the clothing. You could see a similar marking on the clothing in the video, going across the 72.
So
is he wearing a firefighter logo?
Yeah, so these sweats they say fire, and it's like an official logo. I can't read what's underneath the word fire, but this is something you'd wear at a fire station.
Right, right.
And then the top sweatshirt he has on also appears to have some kind of fire logo. So you would think he's an off-duty fire guy or something.
Right.
Okay.
And what he did admit to those investigators is that he had been an explorer with a fire department in the Inland Empire. And that's why he explained why he had, well, he was saying it was current, but that's why he explained why he had the firefighting gear and things like that. So they send out this informational bulletin. We look at the picture, say, all right, we call this a clue, right? This could potentially be the same person. So based on that evidence, we knew that he was incarcerated and he was going to be in there for a while. We decided to...
based on this fire.
He was incarcerated based on this fire.
The fire we're talking about.
The CAL FIRE fire.
With the CAL FIRE fire.
On the Inland Empire.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So
he was incarcerated on that. So, we had suspicion that he was potentially involved in these other fires because those other fires occurred before this one. He wasn't arrested yet. So he's in jail. We believe there's probable cause to write a search warrant for his cell phone records. And we had used cell phone records before on cases and had some real good success. Cell phone technology, allows, there's a lot of data that's stored as part of normal business operations.
I'm going to cut in here. He's being very humble. Yeah, he was our cell phone guru. He would actually teach classes across California.
Oh, nice.
And he'd teach it at the California Conference of Arson Investigators, teach full-on classes so that guys like us would understand how to use them, what we're looking for, how to even speak that language.
Yeah, how cool.
So he's being a little humble, but he had really good experience in this, and I think he used it in here, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's nice of you to say that. It was very interesting. So, so we wrote a search warrant, and we were able to get CS's cell phone records. So when you get the records, you can start looking at the particular calls, and it'll give you some coordinates of where those calls were placed from. That's how you can find locations. And so,
Is that like what they would call, like, when you hear this in true crime, like pinging the cell tower or whatever? Is it similar to that, like location wise? Okay,
yeah, it's similar because a cell tower has a specific location,
sure.
and
Yeah.
so the calls are recorded as being near a tower.
Right. Okay.
So we started going through the stuff, and lo and behold, we find him pinging a tower close to the Anaheim Ganal lumber fire at the time of the fire, and at the time of the fire station burglary. We also see him pinging the towers near the 2 arson vehicle fires in Irvine at the time of the fires.
Oh, wow.
Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah. So, we're like, okay, we're strong suspicion that this guy is probably someone we want to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone we want to talk to more. So,
And lucky for you, he's in the same place for a very long time.
right. He's going to be easy to find.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that we were able to find from those cell phone records was at the time that he was in those areas, he's in contact with another phone number. And it happened at multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay. And just kind of back up a little bit, the other thing that we determined was that this individual lived in the high desert.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty, I mean, that's a
So
good drive to Orange
it's,
County, yeah.
60 to 80 miles away, from, different types of fires. And so, you have to ask yourself, why is this individual, 60 to 80 miles away from his home at between 1 and 4 in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's contacting this other individual also. And we think that that's probably relevant to the case. And so we go ahead and write a search warrant for that individual's cell phone records and get that back. And it comes back as a juvenile. We'll call him Little Buddy, all right? So Little Buddy lives within a mile of CS,
Okay.
okay, up in the high desert. And they're communicating a lot. So they know each other more than likely. They're probably friends. So based on that, we start building this case even more. So this gets to be about, and it takes a while, right? So it's almost a year that we're working this part of the case. We're getting these records, we're analyzing these records, and we're trying to kind of piece things together in addition to all the other cases that come along.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're working on a case, you're writing up a report, and bing, the bells go off, and you've got another fire you got to go to, right? So that you got to
Yeah.
put that on the side burner.
And I know we had the other case where the cell phone records take months sometimes for you guys to even get,
Yes.
if you get them right away, which I'm
Yes.
sure adds just to the, not only frustration, but the time.
And the cell phone companies are less than helpful when securing these records. I mean, you put in a preservation letter, tell them don't get rid of these, and then we'd like a copy, and they drag their feet. So that it's a lot of the time. That's why
Yeah.
it's taking a year.
Right.
Because then when you get it, it's just a massive data dump,
Yeah.
and now you got to dig through all
of
that.
Yeah, and you have to really, I mean, it takes a lot of patience. I mean, I know that there's some, online resources or,
We have
you can
programs
use.
now
Oh,
that
okay.
that
Yeah.
will do it in very little time, but you still have to
That's awesome.
acquire the data. Yeah.
But at the time, I was going through and doing,
Yeah.
individual searches and things like that. And so identifying that. So we get that information. We have CS and Little Buddy's cell phone records. So it's like, okay, well, it's time to go talk to CS. So he is, at that point, incarcerated in Central California at Corcoran. actually called the Substance Abuse Treatment Facility, and it's attached to Corcoran State Prison. So Justin Russell, Detective Russell, and myself make the drive up to Corcoran to go not only talk to him about it, but we had swabbed the box, the Chalfont box at Station 72.
Oh, for DNA?
For DNA. And so we had gotten a search warrant to be able to to collect his DNA
Oh, cool.
to see if we can match it.
Yeah.
So we drive up to Corcoran, go and get him in a room, and he's been in for a while, so he's not just a dumb kid anymore. He's kind of savvy, and we just start talking. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, as you guys are driving up there, do the inmates get notified that you're going to come talk to them? Like, I guess they're allowed to say no, or like, how does that work? Are you guys just allowed to talk to them, or how does that typically work?
We contact the prison officials and
Okay.
say we'd like to come up and talk to him, and say, okay, well, he has lunch at this time, but the rest of the time,
Yeah,
he's doing
he's
nothing,
here, yeah.
not much, So, but they don't tell him.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
surprise when you go in.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's
So
kind of to your advantage, right?
It is to our advantage, and so we, they don't know. Sometimes they have visitors that they don't know about, and they're usually kind of curious about, well, who's coming to see me in prison, and
Yeah, I mean, I can get out of the cell for a while.
yeah.
Totally.
I'll meet whoever.
Totally.
That doesn't mean I have to talk.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we go into the room and sit down with them, and even though he's incarcerated, he's not in custody. He's not in our custody, but we still give him, we call it a healer. It's like, hey, you don't want to talk to us. If you want to go back, to your cell, you can do that. We just are here to ask you some questions about something.
I'm going to touch on that just so she knows. So it's not the full Miranda rights. It's called an behealer admonishment. Basically, it's like, look, you don't have to talk to us. You're free to go, because they're on one side. Were you in glass, or were you in the same room like
No, we're in the
this?
same room. We're like this.
But he'll be closer to the door, so he knows he has the freedom to leave.
Okay.
And then it'd be like, you can leave at any time, and then they have the ability to leave. So we want to make sure he knows his rights are intact and that he
Yeah.
understands them, and they can exercise them at any time, because he
Sure.
still has rights even though he's incarcerated
Right.
for that original fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So we sit down and talk to him, and we're just chatting. We're just getting some background information on him, and what we're trying to do is actually lock him into stuff like his vehicle. It's like, hey, you own this gold sedan, right? It's a Lexus. Yes, that's mine. Does anybody else drive it? No, I drive it. Okay, you have the cell phone, right? And then try to lock him into the different things so that he, I guess they call it dominion. You have dominion over,
Yes.
that stuff.
So that he can't say, oh, my girlfriend was driving it, my dad was driving it.
Oh, because
my
you've
dad had my
already
cell phone. I
said-
share it with my dad. He's now claimed ownership. It's his. He controls it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we establish a relationship with him and little buddy. Says, yeah, we're friends. We've met before. I try to establish a phone number, but he doesn't know it. But we do. So we're talking to him and everything like that, and then he finally just asks, like, so what's this all about? Well, funny you should ask. Okay.
I'm about to tell you.
It's a great question.
It's a great question. Let me answer that for you. We had some fires down in Orange County, and we, have some information that maybe you were, near those fires, and we'd like to see what you might, know about them. I don't know anything about any fires, whatever. Okay. Eventually, he, it's like, well, what kind of proof do you have? It's like, okay, well, I had mapped out some of the stuff. And so I showed him.
Bill, I'm sorry. You mapped out the cell phone or mapped out the video?
Mapped out the cell towers.
Oh, you
Oh,
did. Okay,
Yeah.
so you showed him that.
So I had mapped
Yeah.
out the cell towers and said, hey, look, you're seen next to these fires at the time these fires happen. Can you explain that? And he kind of looked at it, and he's like, you know what? I got nothing further to say. Talk to my lawyer. Okay. No big deal. We got the search warrant for your spit. So open your mouth, and we swabbed them,
Nice.
and then we took off. I thought the nice little touch was that as he got really upset because we were recording, which we were allowed to do. But as he's walking out, he called us a-holes. Which is always like,
Yeah. Did you save it sounds like you saved the swab piece till like the very end.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I love that. Okay, you can leave after I get this.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, open up. So then we bring that back. And so then at that point, we figure, well, now it's probably a good time to go talk to little buddy. Okay. So we find out that little buddy is also in a place that's easy to find him at. He's at juvie.
Wow. The company you keep, huh?
Yeah. So he had gotten picked up like the month after the fire that CAL FIRE responded to. And he'd been in juvie that entire time for over a year.
For what now? Do we know what for? We can't.
Yeah, it was something stupid.
Okay. Okay.
You know, that they always are. So so Detective Russell and I go ahead and we drive out to juvie out in San Bernardino, and you know, arrange to sit down and talk to him. And we go in a room just like this, and it's you know, you do interviews in different locations, and this was one of those rooms that the echo was just horrible. You know, so you talk and there's people talking on the outside and stuff. And so the audio is really hard to listen to, and it's even hard to listen to him talking at that point. But we started having a good conversation, and he was very polite, very, very nice young man. And we, you know, started establishing his phone number kind of thing and everything. We asked him if he knows CS. And he admitted he knew CS, and he said that they had met the previous time that little buddy was in juvie. They were sharing juvie time together.
Woof.
Yeah. And so we asked, you know, what, you know, we told him that we were investigating some fires. And he says, well, you know, CS, you know, used to be a fire explorer. And he had come to me and, you know, talked about doing some, you know, fires and stuff because he knew that fire stations kept money in the chaplain boxes.
Oh snap! So
and
he's just telling you, like,
he's just starting to tell us this, right?
Did you disclose to him that the chow fund money was missing?
We hadn't talked to him about that yet.
So he just volunteered.
Yeah,
that.
he just kind of volunteered
in line
that.
with your investigation.
Yeah,
it's so good.
So he just starts, you know, kind of telling us that, and so okay, well. Funny you should mention that because we are investigating some fires that we believe that he was at where there were some fire station burglaries. We just went and talked to him up at in prison, and he said he knew you and everything. And we have some records that show that you guys were together, you know, near some of these fires. And you know, this poor kid, I thought he was going to throw up. You know, he just turns pale. He's like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm getting dizzy. Can I stand up? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and stand up. It's no problem.
The last thing you want to do, by the way, when you're getting dizzy. But anyway.
Yeah. So he sits down. He goes, all right, I'm going to tell you everything. And he just does a data dump. He lays it all out.
Nice.
He tells us, yes, CS, he wanted me to be a driver for him and a lookout on these fires. You know, I did at least 10 fires with him.
Oh, wow.
We did fires in Orange County and Los Angeles and San Bernardino and Ontario. He described specific fire stations that we know that there was fires at. He told us what they, you know, looked like, where they were. They would communicate, you know, he would drop him off at the fire station, and then he'd have their phones open so that, you know,
so it's like a walkie-talkie
almost.
Yeah.
So little buddy would be able to look out for him, and they would, you know, communicate with each other while CS was in the station. And he's like, you know, and he described, he's like, yeah, there was a lumber yard in Anaheim, a couple of vehicles in Irvine. There was, you know, this hay and feed store up in, you know, this place up in northern, you know, LA County. And he just kind of gave us everything. And it's like we would, you know, get money and things, and we'd split a 60-40 because he did all the work, and so he really kind of laid out things that we already knew. He corroborated a lot of stuff that we already knew, and he also gave us a couple other new things too.
Wow.
So can I just recap a little bit? 'Cause I don't know if you understand what's going on. So my understanding is he had trained in the Explorer program, became familiar with fire activity, how we respond, things like this. Must have been in fire stations, sometimes see that we throw money into a chow fund just to buy chow. I mean, it's not terribly amount of money. I mean, how much
Grocery
money it is for like
yeah.
4 or 5 days?
They got $2,000 on the out of the 4 stations up in northern LA.
Wow.
On that one day, which was pretty significant in cash.
Someone must have shopped cheap those months. But so then what I think's curious is there's car fires, which is going to really draw one station. But when you say hay and feed, when you say Ganal lumber, these are multiple stations that respond. So I think you go on later, but he knew which stations would respond, correct?
Yeah. So he was, little buddy told us that CS would want to do bigger fires to get more stations to respond so they can hit more stations.
Yeah, and not only more stations, like longer periods of time.
Longer periods of time, exactly. He was in one of the stations for over an hour, according to little buddy, just going through stuff. And he says that he would never take all of the money from like wallets and things like that. He would just take part money so people weren't sure. I mean, he said this was really interesting. He said that during one of the fires, and this was out at a pallet yard in Pomona, that he had actually gotten burned.
Oh, wow.
And because he used too much gasoline. This is according to a little buddy. He saw him the next day. He had 2nd and 3rd-degree burns on his face and everything. So he went to the hospital for it.
Oh, wow.
And what's funny is that, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but we did find evidence on CS's phone from that day doing a search for how to cure burns instantly.
Oh.
And then also found evidence that he's telling people that he got burned at a fire the night before, like he's still an explorer and he went on a house fire and stuff like that. So, little buddy gave us that little tidbit too. It was something we didn't know about, at the time.
Yeah. Quick question.
Yes.
So, and I forget if you said this was 72 or which Santa Ana station that they smelled gas when they came in.
Right.
Does he touch on that at all? Does little buddy disclose?
He
why
just said that
is?
he used an accelerant, he used gasoline.
So it was just like him basically that smelled like the accelerant. Oh, I see. Okay.
So he's tracking it through the station.
Got it. I wasn't sure if he was also going to try to like do something to the station or anything like that.
And I know that on the incident that CAL FIRE was on, when they were doing their investigation, on scene investigation, they used a detector,
hydrocarbon detector.
Correct.
Yeah.
And discovered gasoline or ignitable liquid on his clothing at that scene.
So another interesting thing is that some of this, like we talked about, hit locally. And at the time, I was at Garden Grove, and we were at Garden Grove Station 3, which is now OCFA 83. But we'd come back from a call, and guys were going. They're getting. We're probably gonna go shopping, whatever. And they're like, "Dude, I'm missing like money. I'm missing money too." And so he's right. Like he would take he left the wallets, he left everything intact, but he took enough that you're like, did I spend that?
Yeah.
And guys are like, well, I don't know. And then we're looking through our chow fund. Now, our chow fund money at the time was hidden. And it's not hidden. It's just we kept it in a spot that's not conspicuous.
Right.
You'd have to know your way around to find it. It's just because it's not, we weren't planning for anything. But so we think we were a victim of that too, because everyone's like, yeah, I left some money in here. I can't find it. And it was mostly in the lockers, which aren't locked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the time, they weren't locked. Everything's kind of changed. But
yeah.
So we were a victim too. I just can't recall which fire that was.
Yeah, and I remember you talking to me about that, and I think we looked at the records, and we're not able to put him at that scene, based on cell phone records, and there wasn't a lot to be able to tie that into it. Otherwise, I would have been all over it and added it to it.
Yeah. That was smart on him to put reasonable doubt in the thefts in a way.
Yeah, because you never, if you have $100 and you're down to like 40 or 60, you're like, oh, did I Did we buy? Did I
Yeah.
buy Girl Scout cookies or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we leave little buddy, and we head on back, and so we're thinking, okay, we got a lot of good stuff here.
I'd say so.
Yeah, but we still, and by this time, based on the cell phone records, we had identified probably 12 different fires,
Dang.
and all over from a couple of really big fires in LA County, one good fire out in Riverside County with the fire station burglary, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and then Orange County and stuff like that. So they were kind of spread out, and we had like 12 fires that we could either have him at the scene. There was a fire station burglary or two, had some type of video evidence or something, that linked them all together. So I know that Detective Russell and I were kind of chatting about it, and the idea came up. I wonder where his phone is, where his actual cell phone is.
Yeah.
So we reached out to Cal Fire, and I said, well, we had booked that into evidence, with the sheriff's department when he was arrested. Well, do they still have it? It's like, I don't know, probably. So Detective Russell reached out to the sheriff, and they said, oh yeah, it's still in our locker.
Nice.
So did you guys do anything with it? Did you do any kind? No. It's the same way it was when we took it from him. Perfect. Write a search warrant, go out there, grab the phone. It's just like it was when it was taken off of him. Bring it back. Irvine PD had at that time, the ability to be able to analyze the data, on the phone, and we just got a treasure trove of more stuff. We got photos of he didn't take photos of the fire, but he saved screenshots of like the news stories that like one of the things we were able to get some conversations, text messages and stuff like that between him and little buddy.
Yeah.
That was pretty incriminating. We were able to get web searches that he did for these different fire stations that were burglarized. We were able to get notes of engine company numbers that he kept that correlated with the engine companies that were burglarized. We had, and this was a jewel. There was a text message from the mother of one of his friends, and basically she sends him a picture of a KTLA news story that he ends up saving on his phone. I know you're responsible for those fires, and I know you robbed those fire stations. It's like a kid in a candy store, right? You're just getting all this stuff and everything like that. So we kind of catalog it all together. And we start thinking, okay, we have these 12 different fires with this, information that, we could probably put these cases together. One of the problems that we had was that one of the fires up in northern LA County, large fire where there was multiple fire stations that have been burglarized, that investigation had concluded it was an accidental fire.
Like they had ruled that fire wasn't intentional.
Right.
So even if you could prove he was there, they already said that it
Right.
wasn't intentional. I see.
We had a confession from not only little buddy that we did these fires up there.
Right.
We lit this fire and we hit these 4 fire stations. We also had cell towers, putting them right at the area there and stuff like that.
Right.
So we were pretty confident that it was an intentional fire despite the original investigation, and we felt that we could include that with our package. So now we come to the part where it's challenging because you have multiple jurisdictions, multiple district attorneys in different counties who all have an interest in this. And so how do you package this all together? How do you do it to where it's not all separate and everything? We had, district attorneys in Riverside and LA on board in addition to Orange County. So we originally had a thought is that maybe we see if maybe the feds can do it because it crosses jurisdictional lines.
Oh, okay.
And stuff. So we actually went up to LA and had a conversation with the U.S. attorney, up there, and he was interested in the thought and the idea. But their arson, I don't know, is a federal. It's not a statute, right? Because a statute is a state. Maybe it's a code. Their arson code was not real. It was not as solid as the state codes, to be able to charge them on. So it was decided that eventually that we were probably not going to go the federal route. So we come back, we're kind of brainstorming with the Orange County DA. It says, basically the way that we can do this is that if those other jurisdictions agree to give up their cases to Orange County and let us package them together and try them down here together.
Really quick question. In theory, could they all separate the cases and charge him individually, like one after the other?
Yeah.
Okay. But is it a better case though in terms of like keeping him in jail longer if they're all together, like for sentencing reasons, or it's just ease for you guys?
It becomes like, okay, who goes first? Right.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it could still be going on right now if different jurisdictions decided, to do it on their own.
Sure.
And you have to remember there was certain jurisdiction that, according to the story, because this is when I came into the unit, and he's like, "Hey Scott, I'm kind of struggling. Everyone's on board, but I have one area that doesn't believe like it's intentional, so I'm not getting the support I thought." But he just continued on like, well, despite that, I have so much evidence, I have to keep going. And eventually, the DA in that area is like, "Yeah, we totally agree with you."
Yeah.
And it came down to that, but then. So if you file and he files and I file, like you said, well, who goes first?
Yeah.
Who gets the bigger bite of the apple? And then
Seems like a logistical nightmare.
if
almost.
he says something in that one is going to ruin that case for Orange County. So if you can put it all together, then it would be great. And I don't remember how it ended up going together. How did we end up moving?
So
forward?
the DA in Orange County, gave us this option. It says you need to go and talk to these other DAs and see if they're willing to put the cases together and send them over to Orange County. And so we did that. The LA County DA was.
Hold on.
I got to go to court.
Okay.
You do.
The verdict just came out. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I can.
So this is real life. He is on duty, so he has to go to court. A verdict just came in for a different arson case. But we'll continue with the story with Bill and ask some more questions. So go ahead.
Okay, so just to kind of this kind of wraps it up here. So the Orange County DA, told us is like if you can get the other DAs to agree to it, then we'll package it all in here and we'll file it in Orange County. So we were able to do that. LA County DA was great. Riverside, we had a good case out there, but the original DA that had the case had since left, and a new DA came on that wasn't as familiar and wasn't comfortable with it. So we ended up not filing that case. But all in all, we had a total of 19 felony counts that were filed in Orange County, 10 for arson, 3 for an enhancement for ignitable liquids, and 6 for burglary.
Wow.
And then, we're waiting for that whole thing to go to trial, and he ended up pleading guilty to all 19 counts.
Oh, wow. How did the DNA, did that come back that it was hit?
So the DNA, the crime lab came back and said that there was such a mixture of DNA on there that there was not a major contributor for them to be able to positively show that he touched it.
Yeah,
Because
I
there's
mean,
just so many
money-
guys that touch
yeah.
the box and everything.
That makes sense.
So.
Did any other counties have any DNA evidence?
We
either?
we didn't have any of their evidence that came back that they had taken any DNA
Yeah.
on their stuff. So,
Dang.
so we ended up getting him to plead guilty, and I think the total years because the worst charge that he faced was the arson of an inhabited structure. That was the very first case that we
In Santa Ana.
that the vehicle that extended into the place where people were sleeping. So I think it was like an 8-year sentence.
Wow.
And then it was 2 years subsequent. So I think, as I recall, it was about 25 years that, now I don't know if he's serving that concurrently or, or consecutive or how that worked out. And honestly, I don't even know if he's still incarcerated.
Wow.
Scott might be
He
able
has to be. I mean, probably is.
He might be,
But Did little buddy testify against him, or since he pleaded guilty, there wasn't really?
Right.
Okay.
And there was some back and forth on him as a juvenile. If they're going to go and do it, are they going to actually charge him with the crimes that he was an accomplice on and stuff? So it actually, and I know he was responsible for doing, helping out with those fires. But our main focus was getting the guy that was really creating these really dangerous situations. And, the station burglaries are secondary, but, he's lighting multi-million-dollar fires where you have multiple, fire apparatus responding and, guy can get hurt, on these fires. And so just to get him off the street was actually really, that was satisfying.
Absolutely. And he was already in jail for something similar. So
Yeah,
clearly not on the right path.
So the funny part about that is that when we finally, got that whole thing together and the DA agreed to package it, he's still up at Corcoran. And so we get an arrest warrant. And we found out that he was kind of getting close to getting released for that fire that had happened out in Norco. So we're scrambling because if he gets released, who knows where he's at.
Yeah.
So we
and what he's capable of, honestly.
What he's capable of, right? So we get the arrest warrant. We drive back up to Corcoran, and I think it was like the day he was going to get released. He's like. Served him the warrant.
Surprise, or whatever that meme is.
And he had no idea we were coming, and he was really unhappy. But get him in the car, and there's actually it was 4 of us, and we're driving back down to Orange County, and he was just like as stoic as can be until there was one time where he actually changed his demeanor, and this is going through the grapevine, and as we're going up there, there was a fire. On the side of the road going up the hill, and there was firemen out there and stuff like that, and you can tell he changed. He just all of a sudden became interested. He's looking at the fire, he's looking at the firemen and stuff, and it was the only time that he changed the entire time.
That's crazy. That kind of behavior makes you think like if he gets out again, it's so intriguing to him. Yeah. Will he?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You hope that they get rehabilitated,
totally.
Somehow, and
That's
you
cool.
hope that. What he was doing was just the actions of a really immature, dumb kid.
Totally.
And that, this experience has changed him and got rehabilitated and goes on to a productive life. But I don't know, we'll see.
That is so crazy. Well, thank you for bringing that case to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Great job.
It was important for me because, you have such destructive fires, you have such an ability to get someone hurt on it that you just that's why we're here. You just got to get those guys off the street. So
absolutely. And now, I mean, all these different counties in California, there's so much opportunity for a wildland fire to just take off.
Yeah.
So just because it starts or it's in a lumber thing, could quickly take off and become
No,
a
absolutely.
canyon fire.
Especially if you
very
have some
easily.
winds, right?
Yeah.
Get a
Yeah.
little bit of wind and, you have no idea where it's going to go. So
100%. Well, great work. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you.
much for being on the show. We so much appreciate it.
No, absolutely.
I know I speak for Scott too, even though he's not here anymore. But thank you so much. I appreciate
Very welcome. Yeah, nice to meet you.
You too. Well, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us for another fantastic episode. And a big thank you to our retired investigator, Bill Lackey. We hope you keep joining us. And remember, our last case is going to be one that is unsolved, and we need your help with it. We have some great video. We have some great investigators that are going to help tell the story. And hopefully you can help us solve it. We'll see you next time.